greatness within. Girl Activate community is also for the girlies that are not only interested in taking their business to the next level, but also interested in taking your life to the next level. So on this episode today, it hits a little bit close to home for me because recently I had an experience. I had some health challenges, if you will, a few weeks ago, maybe about a month and a half ago, where I had some unusual symptoms that occurred, things that happened that never happened. It actually landed me in the emergency room. Later on in the conversation, we'll talk a little bit more about what some of those symptoms are. But I was released from the emergency room with all of my reports being normal. My brain was normal, my heart was normal, my chest was my chest x-rays were normal, my blood was normal, maybe a few little things that were borderline, but nothing that was concluding to what the experiences that had landed, that was so emergent, that landed me in the emergency room. I went home and some of those symptoms still, persisted, still happening. It was, it was definitely a traumatic and scary experience. And thank goodness, I'm so grateful today. Today, actually, we're celebrating 30 days of gratitude for the month of November. November is Gratitude Month, along with all the other holidays, man-made holidays that we're sharing. But today, I definitely want to talk about how grateful I am for resources and available information, because it was through Google, which is not always our best friend, but it was, if it weren't for Google and me being an advocate for myself, I wouldn't have been able to find symptoms and diagnoses that was somewhat even resembling the things that I was experiencing. So today, I have the honor and privilege to have a special guest on today that will be discussing exactly what the title of the podcast is, Candid Conversations about Menopause. And we'll talk about the journey of even how we got to the space. It wasn't for me Googling symptoms like, dizziness or palpitations or anxiety, or, amongst other things that we're going to talk about, that led me down the road to say, hey, I didn't know that dizziness or vertigo was linked to menopause, and that road of down that rabbit hole of menopause led me to say, wait a minute, I think I might be in the age range. So I had not even considered menopause causing these bizarre symptoms before a couple of weeks ago. And just to wrap up my everlasting introductions, my personal story, it's funny because once you become aware of something, then it starts to pop up all over the place. So when I saw the conversation about menopause and the light bulb went on, then right after that, maybe the next day, I saw a little snippet, like a 60-second Instagram reel where Oprah was talking, and it literally started out saying, I was 48 years old and experiencing heart palpitations. It started at 48 years old with heart palpitations. And I went to 5 different doctors, including a female gynecologist who didn't know what was going on. They put me on heart medication and angiograms and all different types of things. And one day she flipped to a magazine and she saw menopause or something to do with menopause, and the light bulb went on for her. So in a roundabout way, I'm saying that because of that aha moment in a 60-second reel that had validated that I was getting close to what might be going on with me, I couldn't wait. I knew that I had to take on the role as being a beacon, as being a light, and bringing more awareness to my community about what this might be. So, if I could hear from Oprah, and not everybody could relate to Oprah, but my girlies might be able to relate to me. You know what I'm saying? So I'm very excited to have our guest here today, Miss Betty Ann Pilgrim. She is the former Chief Nursing Officer of Trinidad and Tobago. She's a midwife and menopause advocate that's very serious about supporting women on their journey through menopause. So, Betty Ann, thank you so much for coming on the Girl Activate podcast. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, Stacey, thank you so much. I'm really pleased for the invitation to talk about our journey with menopause. And I know through your Girl Activate, where you have already been helping a lot of women and young girls, that we'll be able to help someone here today. Well, about me, I'm also a registered nurse. Um, Actually, in January, we'll be celebrating 40 years as a nurse. And I'm really passionate about issues that relate to women. So any opportunity I get to speak to women's groups about how they feel about themselves, about their hair, I'm not an expert like you in hair, but I can share my journey. I'm also recently I was invited to write a chapter in a book. It's called Waiting in the Pit. The second volume actually just came out. So I wrote in the first volume, and my chapter is entitled Thursday's Child, which we can talk about another time. So that is a little bit about me. I'm married. This year, December would be 32 years, and I have a son who is now in college. Yeah, so that's it.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. So I see also that you are a menopause advocate. Tell us a little bit about what that advocacy is about and how you got into it.
Right. Okay. So how I got into it was really by accident, I would say. Now, when COVID started in 2020, because everybody was now online on Zoom, people were calling me and asking me to speak on menopause. And I'm saying, I don't know anything about menopause. And that led me to search and, do my presentations, learn more about menopause. And then after COVID, I did the speaker mentorship program with Dr. Nadine Collins. And in it, she has a certified prayer counseling program. And it is through prayer that I stumbled, I have to say stumbled on it, because she encouraged us that if we need to find our purpose, we can only do that through prayer. So in the certified prayer program, we were praying every week. Everyone was so excited about, yes, they know what God is saying to them. And I was like, blank. And then one day when she put us on the love seat, which is like a hot seat, but she calls it a love seat, I wrote on my paper, life begins at menopause. And she was asking me questions, and I was just answering. And then I said, well, for me, life begins at menopause. And she exclaimed because she had the same thing written on her paper.
Wow,
And
wow.
like when she showed it to the whole group, a light bulb went on in my head, and I said, yes, this is my passion. I really want to speak about menopause, because as we will speak about, Stacey, in our journey, it could be really, really difficult at times.
Yeah.
And getting out, I really want to help women to get out of that. I will call it like a hole of darkness we can go through at times in the menopause. So that is how I started. And then since then, after the COVID, I would go to churches and conduct programs on menopause. So I'm really thankful for this opportunity where we can speak together on
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, and thank you so much for, helping me to use this platform to bring the awareness. And like I said earlier, it's not anything that I mean, and we can talk about this. It's not anything that I was prepared to deal with now. I knew that it was part of life. Obviously,
Yes,
as a woman, we go through our stages.
yes,
But I think for them, and I can't speak for everybody, but when I thought about menopause, I thought that you go up the hill, you're climbing up the hill, right? You have your toddler, then your preteen, then your adolescence, then you have your teenage years, your childbearing years, and
Yes.
you know, um, I guess that little gray area of menopause, you just feel like, okay, I get older and then I stop
Yes.
having my period. And
Right.
that's the end of that.
That's it.
And I did hear, oh, hot flashes. Okay, so I knew two things. I knew two things about menopause to be true. And this
Yes.
is coming from me, being behind a chair and servicing women of all different ages. I noticed my more mature ladies would be, wanting me to rip off the cape, and they'd be hot one minute and cold the next, So it's two things. I have to say, it's two things I knew about menopause. I knew that I could look forward to potentially getting some hot flashes. Three things: potentially getting some hot flashes, potentially being moody, and lastly, not having my period anymore. And honestly,
Right.
it was the last part that I was looking forward to. I'm like, oh, I don't care. Menopause is when you stop having your period. I didn't like getting it anyway. So hooray, right? So I think that we have the education in all of those earlier years on how to prepare for it. But when it comes to this little window of time right before you actually experience menopause, we don't know enough about it to say,
Yes.
oh, this is why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. So why do you think we're not having this conversation earlier on? When do you think would be the best time to really have this conversation?
Wow, wow, wow. Well, first of all, I want to share a couple of quotes with you before I answer that.
Okay.
Now, more famous people are now getting on board and speaking about menopause.
Mm-hmm.
And Karen Barber, who was a former ice dancer, she said the annoying thing is that nobody talks about menopause. And she said, why is that? It
Mm-hmm.
happens literally to every woman in the world, and yet we are embarrassed about it.
Mm-hmm.
So we have not been speaking about it because people are embarrassed,
Mm-hmm.
right? And also, Amanda Redman, who's an actress, she said, in our mother's generation, menopause was something they didn't discuss.
Mm-hmm.
They felt lonely and embarrassed, but more open. But the more open we are about it, the less of a taboo it will become. And that drove me as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you had asked me before about life begins at menopause, right?
Mm-hmm.
For me, in my story, I suffered for so many years of pain every month, with lots of pain. So when I went into menopause, I was so happy that for me it was like a new life, and I am healthier. I feel healthier and happier in my 50s than I did in my teens, 20s, 30s, 40s. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I because of no pain, right? So the point is this journey to menopause, we need to prepare our younger women. So therefore, this Girl Activate is a good platform because in order to get rid of the shame and the taboo, when we are telling our girls about growing up, and I remember when I was 11, going to church, we were given a book called Growing Up and Liking It.
Mm-hmm.
And they only spoke about periods. But if we're talking about growing up and
That's
liking
right.
it, we
Yeah.
should be speaking about the stages of a woman,
Mm-hmm.
right? So therefore, yes, you will grow up, you will have your period, you might have some pain or whatever. But there comes a time in your life when your period is going to stop. And it may come with some symptoms that are not nice, for want of a better word, that you would not welcome. And
Mm-hmm.
I think if we prepare them, then it wouldn't be just the hot flashes, the moodiness, and the fact that the period stops would be the three things that people would be seeing or expecting.
Yeah.
Right? We need to do it in a positive light because when we're teaching our young girls, like from 8 or 9 or 10, about the period, we are excited about it because it's a stage of womanhood, right? And many girls welcome that stage too, because it's the time when they develop breast, their shape, they get more shapely, they look more beautiful and all of that. So the same thing is, okay, so you have that, then you have your period where you have your children, and everybody that, you look after your children, you're very busy, and you probably don't even look after yourself. But then there comes this time, most likely for most women, when the children would have gone to college or away from home, some would be married, and you will be on your own. It's a time to look after yourself. So I believe, Stacey, which should start from very early,
Yeah.
going through the stages of life, telling our girls about the different stages we may go through, so that we wouldn't feel embarrassed. Because for me, when I went into menopause, I was vocal about it. And I remember sometimes when I got a hot flash and I took off my fan, some women would look at me and say, "You hot?" And
Yeah.
these were sometimes older women. And I'm thinking, "Oh, please, you should know what is happening to me." You
Yeah.
understand? So
Yeah.
so yeah, so that's how it was. And we need to, I'm really thankful. We need to stop it, and we need to celebrate the change.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. I think
Mm-hmm.
that the importance of learning early on will
Mm-hmm.
bring a certain kind of awareness, just how we
Yes.
looking forward to or had our antennas up for certain things to happen,
Yeah.
we would have that increased awareness that, oh, this might be the reason, or this might actually be happening now.
Yes.
Because, when you think of something like outside of the realm of the stereotypical menopause symptoms, when you think about something like anxiety,
Hmm.
you don't think that that's going to be, oh, that might be my menopause happening, or
Yes.
palpitations,
Mm-hmm.
irregular heartbeat. You don't think, oh, maybe, I'm in that
Yes.
age range that this might be happening,
Yes.
or irregular periods, you
Hmm.
know. You don't think that, oh, this might be in the age range. We're going to look high and low for different things where it's right under your nose. So
Yes.
I remember having a conversation with you a few days ago, and we were talking about, you know what, right when they're learning about puberty, they're learning about the beginning, they need to learn
Yes.
the end. They
Of
need to learn
course.
about
Of
the
course.
beginning and the end
Yes.
all at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yes.
we were talking about, oh, they might get a
Hmm.
little overwhelmed, because if you tell a 9-year-old or a 12-year-old
Mm-hmm.
that, all right, this is your period, and then they may not be experiencing menopause for another 40 years. That might be too much information to give that little child. But I think
Yes.
that there's got to be a way to say, hey, girls, this is what the beginning looks
Yes.
like, and this
Yes.
is what the end. It doesn't have to get all gory and, graphic, but this
Yes.
is what
It,
happens when at that next stage.
Excellent. Well, Stacey, just as when children start um, exploring their bodies, and they might ask us certain questions,
Mm-hmm.
the response we give them has to be age appropriate.
Right.
Therefore, when we're teaching our girls about menopause, or about the menses, we said we should say that there's a beginning and
Yes.
there's an end. And
Mm-hmm.
the beginning marks your year, your beginning of reproductive years,
Right.
and which means that you can become pregnant,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then you could have children if you choose to,
Mm-hmm.
and then at the end it will stop, and that means you can't have children anymore,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And so we're putting it in a way that makes them say, oh, some of us, well,
Mm-hmm.
for me, I'm talking for myself, I never thought about the end.
Yeah.
I never thought about the end. But we have to teach them. I guess through God will inspire me some way in which we can teach our young girls about menopause.
Mm-hmm.
Because you mentioned that it might be another 40 years. It may not.
Right.
It may be in less than 20 years that
Mm-hmm.
they go through menopause. Because I was listening to a podcast by just know what's her name, an advocate. Her name is Dr. Louise Neeson. She is in the United Kingdom, and she said her youngest patient was 14.
What?
14. And then she also had people in their 20s. So,
Okay, got you.
right. And then based on what you were saying, um, women, well, first of all, what you described was what we call perimenopause.
Okay.
And perimenopause means around the menopause. And that period varies. So for perimenopause, it can last as long as 10 years. So the average age of menopause in the States here is between 48 to 52. So 52, around there. In the United Kingdom is 51. Now, think about it. So
Yeah.
a woman who is say 50 and goes into menopause, she might have been experiencing symptoms since she is in her late 30s or early 40s. And she would not have noticed that.
Right, right, right.
Because it may
Because
not
if you
have
think about if they're going through menopause between 48 and 52, 10 years
yeah,
before that,
prior to
going
that,
to be 38.
late 30s, yeah. And the thing is, some women think that they are going crazy because of the of how what's the word drastic the symptoms are and how sudden it is.
Right.
And I shared with you about that book called Menopocalypse, where that lady, she was a health fanatic. She was into health. She was very happy, healthy, until all these symptoms started to occur. And it led her on a journey where she was from doctor to doctor to doctor. So when you were speaking, what came to my mind is that how much money is spent or wasted on tests because women think that they're going to die. I remember on one platform when I spoke, one girl, she said she thought she had cancer. And then when she finally discovered it was perimenopause, it was like, wow, I can't believe it. So let us talk about some of the symptoms.
Yes.
Right? So one of the things you mentioned is anxiety or panic attacks. Do you know sometimes that is the first symptom that some women experience?
Wow.
It may be somebody who has it all together, never even thought about it. And then all of a sudden, they're very, very anxious. They're afraid of going out. They lack confidence. They feel really fearful when they would have been brave and adventurous before. Also some women talked about the tiredness that they would feel and just lack of interest in things that they would normally be excited about. They would want to go out. No, they don't want to go out. They just want to stay home. They probably don't even want to put on makeup or comb their hair or look after themselves. Those are some of the things. Then they will talk about night sweats. I remember one of my friends, and that is when I was in my 20s. So I didn't know that it was menopause she was going through. But she talked about how every night she has to get up and change her clothes. So the night sweats could be drastic, where you're just soaking wet, right? Also, for some people, the hot flashes, which can just happen one after the other. The hot flashes. Some people may see changes in their skin. They never had acne before, and then they develop acne. Some people, you mentioned the period. The period would have been bam, 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 every 28 days. And then all of a sudden, they haven't had the period for 30 days, for 40 days, for 2 months. And then it comes and it's heavy, torrential when they've always, or for some people, it might be spotting in between. So you have issues with the period.
Yeah.
And that for some people, they might start having issues with weight. Some people say, I went through a stage in my life where I ate anything at any time I wanted, and then all of a sudden I just look at a cookie and I'm gaining weight. you know so that is what we call the perimenopause. But I'm telling you, the list, what I've mentioned there are just some
Yeah.
of the
That's just a tip of the iceberg. But I wanted to mention that, also bring awareness that this is governed by hormones.
Right.
governed
Yes.
by hormones. So
Yes.
I just want to give the community, the audience,
Mm-hmm.
some context here that,
Yes.
you know, your when your period begins is because you have a certain surge or range in your hormones.
Yes. Yes.
So then
Yes.
when your period is coming to an end, those hormones don't just cut off like that. They
Right.
fluctuate and fluctuate
Yes.
and
Yes.
fluctuate until it
Mm-hmm.
comes down to the
Mm-hmm.
end. So if
Yeah.
you think about if you have PMS or you have certain symptoms before your period, sometimes you might crave or sometimes you might get cranky. Some people
Mm-hmm.
are more emotional, you know,
Yes. Yes.
for their period. So this is all governed by your hormones, which is why
Yes.
it could take a toll on your mood. It could take a
Yeah.
toll on anxiety and depression. These are all
Yes.
chemical
Yeah.
imbalances. And let's
Yes.
not even mention the thyroid, right?
Hmm.
And how that is kind of working together to govern how these hormones are being balanced. So
Mm-hmm.
it just takes away the mystery of how could perimenopause affect XYZ. It's
Yes.
because your hormones are out of whack. Your
Yeah.
hormones
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
imbalanced, and
Yeah.
that can lead to a lot of different things, including mental health, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I just
Well,
wanted to talk about,
well,
how,
excellent.
how it's in relation to
Well,
the
you got a great handle on it there, Cece.
yeah.
Now when well, estrogen is the main culprit, so to speak, but we have other hormones like progesterone, testosterone, and so on, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's more estrogen that is the main culprit. Now,
Mm-hmm.
when during the menstrual cycle, you have a dance going on, so to speak, between the hormones. At times when it rises, and one would rise and one will fall, and so on. But estrogen is what gives a woman her supple skin, gives the young girl her shape, our figure and nice hair and
Mm-hmm.
all of that. And then when the as we go on, as we age, the hormone levels begin to drop. And as you said, it is up and down. That is why during the perimenopausal period, a woman will have periods where she will feel some of the symptoms that we mentioned, and then it will just stop. And
Mm-hmm.
then you might hear girls talking and say, well, I used to have that and it just stopped. And
Mm-hmm.
then when you talk to her 2 months down the line, she said it came back. And
Mm-hmm.
that is because of the hormones being up and down,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when the level of the estrogen falls, that is what gives the a lot of the other symptoms, Stacy, like the dry skin, or sometimes the itching of the skin, the vaginal dryness, the hot flashes,
Mm-hmm.
um, the,
Hair thinning.
well, how could I forget that? Because I experienced that. The thinning of the
Yeah.
hair,
Mm-hmm.
and dry mouth,
Mm-hmm.
dry eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there are so many. I just want to highlight for you some of the usual and some of the unusual symptoms, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have, and then you mentioned too the palpitations, right? The weight gain, change in the breast firmness.
Mm-hmm.
For some people may even have deepening of the voice,
Mm-hmm.
change in libido. And I say change in libido because you normally hear the loss of sex drive, but it's not always a loss of sex drive. Some
Mm-hmm.
women crave more sex at this time. So that's why I say a change in libido. Also, depression,
Yeah.
mood swings,
Mm-hmm.
feeling really irritable and feeling really tired. Those are some of the symptoms, but I want to highlight some of the unusual symptoms
Mm-hmm.
for you. I just took a note here. 1 second, yeah? And I took a note of the unusual ones because um, sometimes people might say certain things and you say, but that's not menopause. And when I researched it, it talked about change in your body odor.
Mm-hmm.
Also tinnitus. Tinnitus, that's a ringing in the air.
Yeah.
Even vertigo,
Mm-hmm.
um, electric shocks, also gum disease,
Mm-hmm.
feeling like insects are crawling over your body, and even in some of the literature talks about burning tongue. So all of these are some of the symptoms, and some places you read, it will tell you over 33 symptoms. Some other places will tell you over 45
I
symptoms.
saw 50. I saw one
Right.
video that had 50.
Right. So it's just everybody will tell you something different, because two things that I probably should have said at the beginning is that menopause is absolutely natural,
Mm-hmm.
and two, it's an individual journey.
Right.
So everybody is not affected the same way. Because some women, I remember one of the churches where I spoke about it, they did a little skit before. And there was one woman who was very proud, and she said, well, I don't have those things, you know, because there are some women, and I think that is only about 2% of women who do not have any symptoms. They just sail through menopause
Yeah.
and they never experience a hot flash or anything like that. No cravings. That's another thing. Cravings as well, right? So there are some women who do that, and they will never experience any of the symptoms that other women do. So it's important for us as women to talk about it and to support a woman who may be having a difficult time in it, not because your journey is smooth, that you should just say, okay, well, let her deal with it. We should support each other, because when you have a friend who was probably somebody who you were always looking up to, she always together, and then all of a sudden you're thinking, what's happening with my friend? You
Yeah.
shouldn't leave her alone, because it's a time when women really need support. It's also a time when a lot of women lose their confidence.
Yeah.
And that's why in our conversation we spoke about women in leadership, because this is most women who, by the time you get to the peak of your career, you'll be either in menopause or close to menopause,
Right.
right? So it could be quite challenging as well in those at that time.
Yeah, I see that. Like you said, everybody's journey is very unique to them. You might have similar, you might have the same, or you might not have anything in common at all. So
That's
I
it.
want to talk about, because you're starting to go into that leadership conversation, and that's actually what I wanted to talk about. So Girl Activate is all about the girlies who are just into their living their best life, but also they want to do well in their business as well as do well in their life. So I wanted to talk about how this has affected maybe you personally in your own work career. I
Yeah.
mean, not just business, we're talking about business, entrepreneurship, the busy woman, altogether. Because like you said, imagine now between 35, 38, and 48, right? You're pretty much, like you said, at the peak of your career, the peak of your life, where you had your degrees, if you have any, you got the job that you so-called wanted, and you've climbed the ladder and you're at the top. Now, that's a scary place for this to kind of occur, right? When you're at the top of your game,
Yes.
you're fully matured, you know what you want in life, and then
Yes.
all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you may lose your enthusiasm for life, lose your enthusiasm for your career,
Yes.
your drive, because I was talking to you about the fact that I'm a person who is normally very goal-oriented, very driven, very ambitious, always
Yes.
bright ideas, always ready to support somebody with their vision, their goals, their dreams. And I can honestly say it's candid conversations, right?
Yes.
Over
Yes.
the last few years, I don't know what is into me. It's like I'm just getting in my own way, and I just can't even seem to claw my way out of getting in my own way. I've read every book, I've watched every video. I know I'm a coach. So I know all of the strategies and tactics to be successful at the thing that I want. But it's just like the interest is gone.
Yes.
The interest in anything. I can't keep my interest in anything long enough. I can't keep my drive in anything long enough. And now that we're having this conversation and the loss of confidence, I've been always known to, on the exterior, really exude a very confident demeanor, right? Where people just have this feeling about me, whether I feel like that about myself.
Right.
And I would say for the past few years, it's starting to like all of this, the dots are starting to connect where, okay, so maybe this is what's been going on all along. So I wanted to have this conversation. I mean, I shared my personal experience now of losing my interest and my drive and not knowing the strategies and not knowing what I should be doing next. This could potentially all be a part of a stage that I'm experiencing in my life. I'm at the top of my game, and now what is next? Why can't I just take that next step to what is next? I do want to give a disclaimer that, and we'll talk about this soon, about diagnosis, symptoms, treatment.
Yes,
I have not been officially diagnosed as being in perimenopause. Okay. So I just wanted to throw that out there. It's just that a lot of what we're talking about is exactly what I'm experiencing. So I'm leaning in toward that connection, but I have not been properly or officially diagnosed with that is the stage. And that's a simple test. I actually took the test yesterday or the day before, so we'll know. I think we'll talk about what it is that they look for. But I wanted you to talk about you also. I mean, I introduced you as the former chief nursing officer of Trinidad and Tobago. You're at the top of your game. And what was that experience like for you? I mean, for me as an entrepreneur, I've been in boardrooms, I've been at the table at very, very, very important tables. I've traveled all around the world and spoke with leaders around the world, and I'm somewhat responsible for my community. So now being in this position, this leadership position, and going through all of these emotional and mental and spiritual fluctuation, what is that like for you in such a leadership role?
Excellent, thank you. So before I answer that, I want to share that over 85% of women have symptoms that are so severe that it disrupts their lives. It's also a time when some women give up. That's when they may give up on their job. They may feel they can't handle it anymore, and they will just resign or retire, right? Now, I didn't know about menopause until, well, when I had a hysterectomy, which is why I went into menopause. Now, and by the 1 week later, I got the first hot flash, and it was just overwhelming. What is interesting is that before that, there was a time I had to speak at an international conference, and I mentioned that in my chapter in Waiting in the Pit. I had to speak at this international conference, and when I went up at the podium, I froze. I couldn't speak properly when I was also known to be a person who was very confident, and I could speak anywhere. I could stand up and speak without a paper or whatever. And the slides were there, and I cannot tell you anything. Eventually, I got through. However, from the time I came down, one of my friends, several of my friends ran over to me, nursing leaders as well. And one of them said to me, "It's the menopause."
Just like that?
Just like that.
Without having any...
Yeah, she said to me, "It's the menopause." And it's only as I started to dig, and even though she said that to me, I didn't start immediately to research it. Brain fog is one of the symptoms that can be so severe. You start a sentence and you can't finish it. There's a word that you want to say and you can't remember the word. Right? So brain fog. So that was my first experience I would say that was perimenopause because I wasn't in menopause yet, but that was my first severe symptom, which was brain fog, right? And you mentioned too that it is a time when in the 20s, 30s, people are very busy looking after the children. We are like superwomen. We wear different hats, several hats, and we're looking after everybody. And then we come to the point where we start having these symptoms, and sometimes they view us as if we going off our head. But it is a time, as I said before, when the woman needs support. So for me, um, I lost my confidence. Um, I think I used to have panic attacks. No, but I didn't know was panic attacks until I was over them, which is like now in hindsight, I realized that it was panic attacks where I would feel a sense of fear, and it was just so overwhelming. And I also lost my ability to stand up and speak before a group. I just felt very afraid. I didn't feel confident, even though others looking at me didn't think that I had lost my confidence, because when I was sharing with some people, they didn't believe it. So when we're looking at a woman in leadership, you need persons in your office, or your bosses, if you are not the boss, to be understanding. So there is room in this space to educate persons at the top, to so that they will know that you need to understand that it is a phase that the woman is going through, and with support she can navigate this successfully. Now, an awareness is important, because I take my hat off to you, Stacey, because you are aware and you are proactive. And that's what we have to say to many women. Yes, this is how you're feeling, but this too shall pass. Because it can feel really overwhelming, and like, if is this ever going to go away?
Yeah.
So I had to hire a coach, right? And she was excellent. Monica Rogers, I have to mention her name. Monica Rogers, she's excellent. She really helped me. I did a personality test. Then she showed how your personality affects your relationship, and how you are to relate to other people in different relationships, and so on and so on. And it was a slow process of getting over, and then taking the speaker mentorship program also helps. So for women, even if you cannot afford to do these things like hire a coach, you need to be aware. So you need to read, and you need to tell yourself, listen, this too shall pass. I will not be in this stage all the time. And it is also, I can look forward to a more exciting time in my life, a time when I can look after me, because I spent probably 20, 25 years looking after everybody else. So it's a time for us to slow down. And that worked for me. A time for us to slow down. It was like the first time in my life I started to say no.
Yeah.
And also I read this book called Boundaries. And I learned so much from that book. And I realized that so many of us as women suffer with that. We are afraid of saying no, because we don't want to let other people down. And sometimes you become like a doormat, so to speak.
Yeah.
People use you.
Yeah.
And then when you need that support, no one is there for you. Right? So what I'm saying through all of this, Stacey, is that, again, women, prepare for it. How I prepared? Well, number one, from the age of 40, I started looking after myself better, exercising more, at least 3 times a week. And then I moved that to about 4 or 5 times a week, exercising, drinking lots of water, right? Trying to rest, and getting at least 7 hours of sleep at night. I don't always manage that, but that is important, because you mentioned, Stacey, about the hormones. Because you see, when we don't sleep well, which is another symptom, insomnia is a symptom, or lack of sleep. Not Sometimes it may not be insomnia totally. You sleep, but in short bursts, right? And sleep is affected, which causes the rise of cortisol, and cortisol is also responsible for the weight that we put on around our midsection and all of that. So that's why it's important, I'm saying, for us to start looking after ourselves, right? Making sure that we eat healthy foods, whole foods, lots of fruits and vegetables, making sure that you have lots of salads and so on. So I think that that is why, like, I wasn't aware that I was even in perimenopause, because I was pretty healthy in the 40s there. And until I had the surgery, and then that's when the hot flashes and other things came. But I feel that if I had not been taking care of myself, it would have been worse. Right. So looking after ourselves is important. Also, because of the years of looking after others, women build their identity around that. So you ask women, who are you? Oh, I'm a mother of three, I'm a wife, or whatever, whatever. But who are you? And that is one of the questions I ask women when I do some of my programs. I say, who are you? Ask yourself, who are you? There are things that you like. Why do you like it? Or things that you don't like? But why don't you? And then you're looking at, okay, if these are things that I like, then I should be doing things to make me happy. And it is not being selfish. And one of my friends, she does a lecture called putting on the mask first, your oxygen mask. And that is what we have to do, because if we are not well in this phase, we cannot look after anybody else. So that's some of it about me, where I lost my confidence. I had this panic attacks. I felt, I just didn't feel myself. But because of the awareness, and that is why I think I was able to climb out, so to speak, of it. And that's why I want to help other women, to let them know that, listen, okay, this is how you feel, but you would not feel like that forever. And that's where the life begins at menopause, because I realize it's a time where you can reinvent yourself. There might be something that you wanted to do all your life. And this is the time when you can make the time to do that, because it's about looking after you. So Ceci, that's it. I hope I answered the question. And if there's anything else that I left out, just let me know. Yeah.
No, definitely. Thank you, because I wanted you to, because one thing that we would have in common in this phase is, like you said, we have peaked out. We have reached a peak in life in some way, whether it be career, life, business, and what that experience is like, because two things we didn't really get to dig into was the shame around it. Kind of touched on that. And then secondly, speaking from my point of view, my perspective, feeling like I'm going through it now, I want to kind of dig into that, what you were saying, climbing out of it.
Yes.
Your perspective now might be you're looking back at it, right? Like what you experience. My perspective now is climbing out of it. And let me just tell you, it feels uncertain. And it feels very uncertain.
Yes.
And to incorporate anything new, even though it's healthy, just adds a little bit to the overwhelm. That's just my experience right now. With each day and with each week that's going by, I feel more comfortable to try new things. But because I feel like a little traumatized still, that I've had this experience. When you're having an attack of any sort, whether it be panic attack, anxiety attack, or you're having palpitations, or you going the dizziness and the lightheadedness, you feel doomed. You feel doomed, and it's a helpless feeling, especially when you have a lot of people counting on you. So in my case, it's my family, it was my business, it was my business partners that was heavily relying on services or my presence to be around. So, I mean, in theory, yes, we want to eat right. You want to exercise. You want to do things you love. You want to stop being a people pleaser. You want to do that. But in the moment, like right now, kind of now only seeing the horizon that, okay, I have a little hope because I'm identifying with these symptoms. But when you're going through it and not knowing what's going on with you, it's hard to incorporate all of these beneficial things. So,
Yeah.
and I'm
Yeah.
just speaking from my perspective.
Yeah.
And I want to talk to women that you might know, okay, I need to eat right. I need to exercise. I need to sleep more. I need to move my body. I need to live for me. I need to stop being a people pleaser and a doormat. Da, 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 da. When you're going through it, it's kind of like, okay, how do I get to tomorrow?
Yes.
I've
Yeah.
never been so thankful, you
Yeah.
know, to see the sunrise, you know, because okay, I have another chance
Yeah.
to fulfill whatever mission I have. I have another chance to live again. I have another chance to live fully.
Yeah.
So that is what I'm embracing now, is that
Yes.
okay, I have
Yes.
another chance. Okay,
Yeah.
today is better than yesterday. Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't have any attacks. I didn't have today was a little bit smoother, right? And I was telling you before we got on this call, I have not really been out or put on any makeup or didn't, like, today is like, girl, you doing it. Woo, you're doing it, because I have not done this. And this
Yes.
this is forward facing. This is how people are used to me. So they're just like, oh,
Yes.
she's showing up again. But listen,
Yes.
it's been a while since I showed up for myself. So even this little
Hmm.
this act, right? This gesture,
Yes. Yes.
this step that I'm taking is it's a small step, but it's
Yeah.
also a big step, because you think like, why am I even, because listen, when you feel doomed, like this is the end, you don't think anything matters. You don't think anything matters. And I think I was talking to my aunt, and thank goodness for my support system. After all the tests came back negative, so my heart is good, my lungs are good, my brain is good. She said, hey, nobody has been known to die from this. Okay.
Mm.
It's weird, but I needed to hear that. It's weird,
Mm-hmm.
but I needed to hear that, because when the room is spinning and when you feel like the battery is being drained out of your body,
Yeah.
or you feel
Mm-hmm.
like your heart is going to jump out of your chest, or your mind is thinking things and going crazy,
Mm-hmm.
you just think it could end. And I just got to be very candid. Again,
Yeah.
candid is not the same
Yes.
thing.
Yes.
It's the
Yeah.
end. You
Yeah.
think this is it, this is the moment,
Yeah.
that's it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to share that, first of all. Hey, it's okay to go through your feelings
Mm-hmm.
when you're going through this, because
Yeah.
there is,
Mm-hmm.
in my case, my tests were normal, my heart is strong, my brain is strong. So
Mm-hmm.
I 99.9% I'm not going to die from this. And that helped me to, no, honestly, it
Yeah.
was like you have a fear to go to sleep, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I said, okay, I can sleep because I know I'm going to get up,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
that's the insomnia and all the other things that we're talking.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm not going to take up too much time on
No,
kind of terrifying symptoms, but it
yeah.
is a form of PTSD, because I'm still afraid to do anything.
But Stacey, we're talking about candid, being
Yeah,
candid,
yeah,
right? I'm glad you're sharing that, because the point is, well, you actually gave the solution while you spoke there, because you talked about taking small steps,
right.
taking small steps, because the point is menopause, because of the withdrawal of that hormone, it affects our mood, and I should say hormones. It affects our mood, it affects our bodies. That is why women are more at risk of heart disease and things like osteoporosis at
Mhm,
this time, because of the withdrawal of those hormones.
mhm,
Yeah. But you mentioned taking small steps.
mhm.
So when you said that, something came to my mind. There's a song that I used to hear on the radio where the lady was saying, "It's my party and I'll cry if I want to." I don't know
Mhm.
if you know that
Yeah,
song.
yeah, yes, of course.
Right. I never listened to the whole song really, but that line.
Mhm,
So if I don't feel to dress up today, well, I ain't dressing.
mhm,
Because you see, again, we kind of um when we try to force it,
mhm,
we sometimes don't really deal with it. Because you're just thinking about, I have to do this because this is what people expect of me. But remember, this is your party. You feel to cry today, you cry. And sometimes you feel to dress up, you dress up. And like one of my friends, she said she dresses up and she shows up. You know, she gets up, and if she feels to put on her best dress, do up her hair, she does it, and she goes, even if it's to go to the supermarket. So it's a time when we need to throw off some of the cultural taboos, I will say, for want of a better word, that has kept us suppressed, or feeling like we're in a box and you have to do this and you have to do that. No, you don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
Right? If you don't
about the being in the box part of it, it's like you're having this again. I have to draw back to leadership roles because most we're at the peak performance. I have to talk from that vantage point of we're at the peak, right? And people are counting on us, our jobs, our families, and everything like that. I wanted to kind of shift into the shame around because, okay, so now in the process of climbing out or going through it, again, disclaimer, I have not been officially diagnosed, but I'm relating a lot with it and climbing out. But I can say, for me personally, there was a little bit of shame, not even a little bit, there was a lot of shame around it because you're being known as the strong woman, the confident woman, the go-to person. And at the peak of that mountain, to now have to, again, we're talking about how it affects the workplace and your business and entrepreneurship, having to call out of work. Do you still show up, or do you call out? Are the symptoms that bad? You know, can you toughen up? Can you toughen up? Can you push through it? Because for me, I had to miss out on multiple opportunities over the last few weeks because the symptoms had been that overwhelming, you know? So I just wanted to talk around the shame. There's two parts of the shame, right? It is the shame, number one, of not being able to live up to your role. That's the shame. Like, oh my God, everybody thought I was so strong. And now look at me, I'm weak. Now look at me. I can't even do the thing that I'm here to do. I'm not living up to my role. And the second part of the shame we deal with as a society is age, right? So if I identify with menopause or perimenopause, that means I identify with as a woman getting older. And we know that aging women is frowned upon, okay, in the world and in the workplace, where your job can quickly be replaced by a younger person, a man, you know, because we're Black women, so we are working harder anyway. Okay, your job could easily be replaced by a younger person or by a man. So those are the two of the shames that I think come to mind, is this kind of ageism, right? And the second shame is letting people down in your role. So I don't know if you want to talk to that, you know, how you felt also experiencing that.
Right. And the other shame too comes with the symptoms. Okay. So number one, for many people, menopause equates to old age. That is for many people. That's a mindset. But again, as I started to say, we have to take small steps, and we have to have some positive self-talk. Because the mere fact that I am getting to menopause or in menopause, and I heard Michelle Obama actually said this. I'm not verbatim, I'm quoting, but she was saying the mere fact that you have a hot flash or you have a symptom of menopause, you should be thankful, because it means that you've grown, you are alive, and you have lived to a particular age.
It's a blessing.
Right? It's a blessing. So you see it as a blessing. No, you know, something that is very important that you mentioned is that when you're in it, it's sometimes difficult to see the positives, right? Because you feel as though it's not going to end, right? So that's why what we're doing here is important, because it's helping to prepare women for what might happen to them.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about the shame. So, okay, we have to do positive self-talk. Growing older or growing old is part of life. But we have to embrace that, because the fact that we have the opportunity to live in our 40s and 50s is that God has granted us life, right? Also, we have to stop looking at it as letting people down. Because remember, I mentioned that this is a time when you have to look after yourself. So then the important thing to do is how you tell people that, listen, you have to let me off the hook here. For example, with your business things that you don't have to do, you had to explain to them that I don't know how you did it, but you have to explain to them that I made this commitment, but unfortunately I'm unable to. But you shouldn't feel so guilty, allow yourself to feel so guilty that guilt then leads to shame, and then you start feeling I am not worth anything and so on, because it could be a spiral.
Right.
And I'm saying that because I went through that, where I really had lost it. I really didn't feel that self-worth. Even though my sisters, my friends, everybody felt Betty was always the one who has it all together,
Mm-hmm.
and that could bring you a certain level of stress too, because
To maintain.
to maintain it, to maintain it. And then for some of us, we play along with it. We play along with it, but you have to get to a point where you have to really be honest and say, well, listen, no, I'm not doing okay. I'm not doing okay. I need to stop this. I need to stop that. I need to spend some time away from work. I need to spend some time away from the crowd. I need to spend a day on my own, or I need to take a weekend and go, and go somewhere on my own. So all of that. So the self-talk, taking small steps, not you have to, when the negatives come, you have to try and counteract that with positives. And as I know you're a woman of faith and I'm a woman of faith, and because of that, we use God's word to help us, because God actually tells us that he thinks about us more than the sands of the sea. So it means that every millisecond God is thinking about us, and also that we are fearfully and wonderfully made. Put a group of women in a line. Everybody is different, but everybody is beautiful. So you have to do that self-talk and read positive books. Surround yourself with positive people, and that is how you would survive.
Yeah.
And I'm saying survive because, again, we are acknowledging that when you're going through the process, even getting up and dressing up will be a chore.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But we're taking one step at a time. And sometimes that step might mean, if this is how I feel today, I will just give in to the feeling. I'll stay in bed. I'll stay in bed a bit longer. I wouldn't do any work. Instead of cooking, I will buy takeout. I will sit down and look at a movie, something that a movie that I really like. So something for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what we have to do in order to. But that shame, coming back to the shame, but the greatest shame for me used to be the symptom, the hot flash. Because when you're thinking about being in a building or in a room that is probably minus 10 degrees,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden you break out and you are fanning, you're the only one fanning in the room. You can look, people might think she's crazy, but I overcame it by when my team at the time, they bought me all different types of fans from
Yeah.
China, and
Mm-hmm.
and I used to just have my pretty fan. So then my fans became a topic of conversation, and I just started fanning and keeping my head forward, not bothering anybody, because
Right.
it's about, you have to look after you. And then after a while, nobody took me on with my fan.
Mm-hmm.
At first it probably was shocking, but then after a while, they realized that, yeah, Betty Ann would bring out her fan. And now I don't even walk around with a fan. So it gets better.
Right.
I just want people to know that it gets better. And some days are better than some, but it's not the end. It's not the end. And menopause lasts for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And also remember that women are living longer in the menopausal years because life span has increased, right? So that's why it's important, Stacey, that's why what you're doing is so important, because you're preparing women to deal with what is ahead, because they might be in menopause for a very long time.
Yes, I just want to just hop in here. I'm so glad I have my phone out because we got a comment and
Okay.
it says the host keeps saying she's not diagnosed. Is there a diagnosis for menopause, or is it just based on symptoms? So I just want to we can go into that. I just want to say why I keep, thank you so much for bringing that up, because we were going to come back again to the symptoms, the diagnosis. We're actually going to definitely add that in. The reason why I keep mentioning that I'm not diagnosed, you are absolutely correct. They are, along with symptoms. Symptoms are the first identifier, right? Because what we want to learn here and what we're advocating for is that we are our own self-advocates, right? So number one, we have to be aware of what's going on with our body, and we have to be advocates for what's going on with our body. Why? Because when I went to the emergency room, they sent me home because nothing was what they call emergent, right? That means that they can send me home because based on what's happening to me, I'm not going to die, right? But that I still have symptoms that are causing me not to be able to function in a normal way. And I wanted to get to the bottom of it. So me saying that I'm not diagnosed, I'm leaning in to my symptoms because they're so closely related to the symptoms of perimenopause. Number two, we're going to talk about exactly, yes, it is diagnosed. So aside from the fact that you actually, okay, I'm just going to jump right into it. Menopause is classified as when you are absent from your period for 12 consecutive months. Okay, so on that 12th month, when you're supposed to get your period and you don't, you are technically, for that one day, you have begun menopause. You can check that off the list. You are now in the stage of menopause. Now, perimenopause is the 7 to 10 years that are leading up to this one day. Okay, and as we were talking about, that fluctuation of moods and hormones and everything can cause different symptoms. So the reason why I'm saying I have not been diagnosed is because I haven't taken the test for hormones that can indicate, yes, you are in a decline for your estrogen. And because of my age, I just turned 45, I am in that window for perimenopause. So thank you for bringing that up. And we're going to just segue into that. I just wanted to explain why I keep saying I'm not diagnosed, because I want to bring awareness to the fact that I had to self-advocate. Okay. Betty Ann is here. Betty Ann is here on the Girl Activate podcast because I had to self-advocate. I had to Google, I had to read books, I had to watch videos to say, this looks so close to what I have. Let me bring on an advocate or an expert in this field. So with that being said, we can actually talked about the usual and unusual symptoms early on. So let's talk about how this is diagnosed and then how it's treated.
But Stacey, you answered it very well. You did a great job. Now the point is,
where are you going? I'm sorry. She said, thanks for clarification. Just wanted to make sure it's not part of the shame that's attached with menopause. Actually, oh, I keep saying I'm not menopause. Don't cut. So she said, you know what? That's very clever. I didn't even think about that. Like, maybe I'm denying that I'm in menopause because I don't want to have the shame. So actually, no, it's not because of the shame. It's because I have not been technically diagnosed. So let's talk about how are you actually diagnosed for menopause?
Well, you answered it. And I just want people to know that there are no available tests to prove whether you're in menopause or not. Now, you have different schools.
What about the
let me explain.
Okay, all right.
Because you have different schools of thought.
Okay.
Right? Now, the the doctor was the doctor that I told you from the United Kingdom, Louise Neeson. She actually says that women, we should not do any blood tests to check any hormones to tell us whether or not we are in menopause or perimenopause, because it's actually very costly, and she says that over 9 million pounds was spent on women having tests that they didn't really need to have. Okay, so the point is, if you are under 45 and you're having symptoms, that is when you would normally recommend that they would do a blood test. But when you are 45 and over and you're experiencing the symptoms, it really doesn't make sense paying for a host of tests.
Right.
Right, checking your hormones is for when a woman is under 40 and she will be there's a word that slipped me. So it will not be the natural process then, right? So she will be going into menopause, but it will be too early menopause, right? So that is only when it's recommended. But otherwise, if a woman is over 45 and having the hot flashes, the night sweats, she might start having the dizziness, the tinnitus, the vertigo, changes in her hair, changes in her skin, probably the vaginal dryness or whatever the symptom, then they could say to you that you are perimenopausal, and especially also the period might be spotty, meaning that it used to be regular every 28 days for the last 40 years, 44 years, and then all of a sudden it's irregular. So those are the symptoms that will really let a woman know that she is perimenopausal. And as you explained very well, menopausal is when after an entire year of no period. And just last night I was talking to one of my friends, and she was saying, it was last year, June, she was counting down because the last time she had it was June the previous year. And then in that June, she started a period. So she said it wasn't like normal, but I had a period. So then she said, I was about to throw a menopause party and I had to cancel because I'm no longer in menopause. So as you...
Wait. So if you go 11 months without it and then you have one, you got to start the 12 months.
Thank you very much. It has to be 12 completed months.
Wow.
So she is now on the countdown. She cannot wait for June.
Wow.
So that is basically it, right? You cannot all right, the word I wanted to say was premature menopause.
Okay, gotcha.
So that's below the age of 40, right? And there are some people who go into menopause in the late 30s. And I know a few people, and when they check, their mother went through menopause early and they went through menopause early, like 38, 39.
So I want to say that
very rare.
I took the blood test that I took was first of all, there's two things. So last night, out of the blue, I saw a commercial for a menopause kit. And I said, wow. So you mean to tell me I go from not seeing anything about this? Well, we already know Siri and Alexa is listening to us, right? So you'll see ads on your phone, but this was TV. This was the television. And it was late at night last night, and it was a commercial for a menopause kit. So you know how they have kits to determine your ovulation and if you're pregnant. So now there's a kit. I have to look it up to see, well, what is this? To let you know if you're in menopause. Number two, the blood test I took was, I think the LSH or FSH or something like that.
Yeah. LH, luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone. Right. Those are the hormones that come into play during your menstrual cycle.
Right. So we'll see if there's any kind of decline there.
There would be.
It's kind of silly because I'm like, okay, well, I'm 45, so I'm in that window. You know what? To be honest, I feel better just knowing everything, right?
Yeah.
One of the symptoms that I was having was, I thought, because I know people who are also hypoglycemic, right? And with the hypoglycemia, which is the low blood sugar, they are getting things like cold sweats, palpitation, dizziness, they get the shakes and all of that. And that is, and at some points, that is what I was getting. So I thought, oh my gosh, am I becoming now hypoglycemic? And then I read that sometimes with the fluctuation of hormones, it can cause fluctuation with your glucose levels. But let me tell you, when I took a step further, because I'm a person, just like I said, when my aunt said, hey, you're not going to die from this, I compute that. I compute it. And that's one thing I can, right? So when all my tests came back normal, I was able, okay, whew, that's one thing down, right? So we know it's not the heart, the lungs, the brain. Okay, it's not the blood. Second step, she said, hey, no one has been known to die for this. Woo! All right. I put that one under the rug, finally, okay? Then, because of the symptoms seeming like it was hypoglycemia, every time I got hungry, I got anxiety that, oh my God, I got to eat something because I might pass out or something like that. So you know what your girl did? She got a glucose test. I got a glucose test, okay? Just to make sure that nothing is going to happen to me if I don't eat. Because what happens now is I go from eating twice a day, normally on a regular day, twice a day, eating healthy, having, things here, to now feeling like I have to eat 4 times a day and snacks. So you know, I'm not moving around, I'm not going out to work, and I'm eating 4 times a day plus snacks. You know what's going to happen, right? So I said, listen, I need to borrow a glucose kit, because I need to know that if I go past 3 or 4 hours, I'm going to be okay.
And you know something? It's even good to have a glucose kit, because
I have every kit. I have
pressure and a blood pressure machine.
This past couple of weeks, I'm like triage. Okay. So I have the glucose kit. I have the finger thing where you do the oxygen and your pulse. I have the blood pressure kit. What else? If there's anything, a thermometer. So if there's anything to have, I'm going to have it, because it may seem crazy to one person. Oh, she's a hypochondriac. No. I'm not a hypochondriac. I don't think I'm sick from everything. I just to demystify. I need to take the mystery out of it so I can relax. So now I know my glucose is normal. Now I know my pressure is normal. My pulse is normal. My organs are okay. Okay, I got my hair and my makeup on now. You see, do what you need to do.
But one of the symptoms too. You see, you actually, all the symptoms you described there are perimenopausal, because sometimes people become OCD as well during that phase. But the important thing, there's some important things that came out. It's important, Stacey, for us to check, to do random checks on our blood pressure and on our glucose levels. But you remember what we said? Because of the change in hormone levels and the rise in cortisol, that causes the body to put down fat around the abdomen. And the fat around the abdomen can make the body more resistant to insulin. And that is why some women in the menopause become diabetic. So it's good to check it occasionally, and that could be why you have the cravings and you feel very hungry. But as I said to you before, you have a handle on things, in that you are very much aware, right? Because
I'm proactive. I'm a proactive person.
That's it.
I can't sit back and just let this thing happen to me. And that also, I mean, we could talk about this on another episode, but you have to have a higher calling. You have to have a vision for your life. You have to have a higher calling, because I knew, like I said, when I was happy to wake up and see the next day, I said, all right, God, you need me around to fulfill this mission. So you have to be proactive now, because you got stuff to do. You got a mission to fulfill, you know? But what I want to do now is talk about treatments. So is there any, outside of the eating healthy and exercise and movement and if you are in fact in this perimenopause and you've experienced these symptoms and you feel like there's no way out, is there treatments, like a medical treatment that can be done to help with these symptoms?
Right. So we need to remember that with menopause, women are more at risk of heart disease, right? Bone loss, at risk of things like diabetes and so on. So lifestyle change is important. So if you were one who was used to just buying a lot of junk food, eating a lot of fat, and eating all the wrong things, you need to take a handle on your nutrition, right? And exercise is important. So you must exercise using weight-bearing or resistant exercises. That's very important.
But
so it's not a matter
like with the palpitations, you feel like something's going on.
right. Well, the palpitations are something that would happen, and it would, most people, it doesn't last throughout the entire menopause. It might be a period where you just have these palpitations and then it will go, right?
What about you talking about working out and doing this resistant training?
Yeah.
What if you're sensitive to, or maybe it could just be, mental.
Right, because it's a symptom, and it might be transient, so which means that you might have it for a few minutes and then it will go. It shouldn't affect you with taking on exercise, but exercise is important, right? And it must be weight bearing, so you have to do some weights and you have to do resistant exercises. Very, very important. Nutrition, exercise, drinking lots of water, right? Making sure that you rest, right? Not overdoing. You have to cut off things like caffeine and smoking if you do.
Yeah.
Right?
Caffeine was something from the time I had to go to the emergency room. I just went cold turkey. I had coffee almost every single morning.
Yes.
I did that. I cut that out cold turkey.
Yeah, that actually, yeah, that's good.
I had slight, with people are afraid to get the withdrawals, the headaches and everything that comes along with it. But right after I went through that, I still had a very anxious feeling like I drank coffee, which led me to really wonder, was I amplifying all of my symptoms with coffee? Right? Because if I'm not drinking coffee and I still feel anxious, like I had coffee, what was the coffee really doing but amplifying
it does.
And making
it does. But you're right. It amplifies it, and that's why we recommend that you reduce it and then eventually come off. That's coffee. And if people smoke, that they would stop smoking, right? Also, because of the anxiety and so on, people may need to have counseling or cognitive behavioral therapy. So with the cognitive behavioral therapy, the therapist will help you to identify things that are triggers, things that could have impacted on your symptoms and so on that you yourself were not even aware of, right? So it's helping you through the journey, to walk through this journey. Also, having a diet that is high in calcium and in vitamin D, it's also important. Now we have some natural things. So it hasn't been researched really, but some natural things actually help women. Things like black cohosh, having evening primrose oil, vitamin E, because remember, with the dryness in the skin, vitamin E is very important, right? So I recommend that for women, having evening primrose oil, vitamin E. Some people find that homeopathy helps. So having different oils like lavender, chamomile, and all of that helps to calm them down in the evening, especially before they go to bed. So those are some of the things. You have some other treatments like the hormonal therapy. Now, this is very controversial. And that is because of a study that was done in 2002. And they stopped the study because there was some incidents of increased cancer breast cancer in these women. Now, some other persons who speak on this study talked about it was flawed and that most of the women on the study were over 60, almost 65 years old, and so on. And so they may have also been at risk of developing cancer anyway.
Right.
But since then, another study was done with over 7,000 women, and they showed that using estrogen alone did not cause an increase in the breast cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So a person who decides to go on hormone replacement therapy, that would be a decision that they should sit down and speak to their doctor about. And it is recommended that you go on it for a short period of time, short period meaning about 5 years, and then you come off and then you can go back on. But you have to remember that when you're on this, you must also maintain your health by doing your checks. So you're having your mammograms, you're doing your pap smears and all of that. And women without uterus, who don't have a uterus, they will normally put them on the combined, and a woman with the uterus, they would just put them on the single without the two, without progesterone and estrogen. Yeah.
I know that
Because
that video that I saw with Oprah, that little 1 minute video that I was telling, and she said it all started when I was 48 with palpitations. When she found that article about menopause, she said that she was feeling kind of blah, like life was, imagine Oprah saying this, right? And then she said, she spoke on when she got her first shot, her first hormone replacement. She's like, oh, the sky was bluer, the flowers were brighter and everything like that, because she had this hormone replacement therapy. So it's good to know that, if you're not feeling like yourself, that you do have some options, but of course, know what the side effects are from the options.
That's it. And that's why I'm saying they must have a conversation with the doctor, because it is proven that going on the hormone therapy actually improves the mood. Many women have also been put on antidepressants during this stage, but going on hormonal therapy has helped to boost the mood, and also it actually works against it decreases your risk for heart disease and also osteoporosis. So there are some positives with it, but we recommend that your doctor should guide you through. And one of the corrections I want to make, estrogen only is for women who have had a hysterectomy, and women with a uterus, they will be given the combined estrogen and progesterone to protect the uterus from uterine cancer, right? So those are some of the treatments, and so it's an individual thing. It's an individual thing. I cannot tell you what to do, but I can guide you in that. I can make you aware of what is available out there, right? So there is hope, and there is treatment that can help women. With the going on the hormone replacement therapy, it stops the hot flashes and reduces the risk of heart disease and osteoporosis. And once it's monitored properly, also in deciding, this is where the doctor may do a blood test, which is to look at the level of your hormones and then decide which one you should go on. Right? So, and they also recommend that you start off on the smallest dosage of the hormone therapy, before start off the smallest one, and then you are observed over a period of time, and then to help you to get on the right dosage, rather than start you on a top dose and then move on, right? So and that's basically it. You have to, I like to, in my head, go through the new start, which is nutrition, exercise, water, sunshine. That is where the vitamin D comes in. Temperance. That's why I mentioned about not overdoing it with the coffee and to stop smoking. So temperance means that you stop doing the things that are harmful, and the things that are not, that you use it in moderation, right? Temperance, air, to get some fresh air. rest is important, and then also trust in God. Not everybody believes in God, but if you don't believe in God, you meditate, and but I believe in God. So I believe trust in God, and prayer, and also support from friends and family. And that's why it's important to ensure that your family and men are included when we are educating women about menopause, so that they too could be supportive. And also at some point, Stacey, we might talk about anthropology. So men have something too.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Well,
Yeah.
now we talked about the phases, we talked
Mm-hmm.
about the stages, we
Yeah.
talked about the symptoms, we talked about solutions, and we talked about treatment. Now I want to talk about the brighter side of things, right? Like
Yes.
we talked
Yes. Yes.
about
Yes.
all of the tough stuff, the tough
Yeah.
conversations, and
Excellent.
the negative perceptions and the shame. But let's talk about this in a positive life. So, a
Yeah.
positive light. I know
Yes.
that you're working on something called Life Begins at Menopause. So,
Yes.
let's kind of brighten up and help our viewers have more of a positive perspective. Like, okay, so you're going through the stage and you made it through this part, and now 12 months have passed and you can mark it on your calendar. Menopause has happened. How did you come up with that name, and what does that mean, and how could we feel positive about this stage in
Right.
women?
Right. For me, as I mentioned before, because my life was plagued with pain, when I tell you pain. And I know some women, because in the perimenopausal period, their period could become extremely heavy, which means that they could become anemic and then suffer with real severe tiredness. Having the period stopped is a time of celebration. Because talking to my same friend I told you about, she said this is the first time for a long time that her hemoglobin level is 12,
Mhm.
right? And that she feels so good and all of that because the period has stopped, right? So for me, life began at menopause because it's a time when I didn't have pain and I didn't have heavy period. So I just felt so excited and happy. And I have some quote here. There's an actress, Kim Cattrall, you know what she said? She said, I see menopause as the start of the next fabulous phase of life as a woman. Now is the time to tune in to our bodies and embrace the new chapter. If anything, I feel more myself and love my body more now at 58 than ever before. Oprah says, so many women have talked to see menopause as an ending, but I've discovered this is the moment to reinvent yourself. And that's why I mentioned before when we were talking about self-talk and now starting to look after yourself. Now, is there something that you always wanted to do? Some women pick up art. They've always wanted to paint. They pick up a new career in hair. They take up dancing. So it is a time when we need to do what we want to do, right? Also, it's a time in your life too when things that used to bother you when you were 20, 30, 40 doesn't bother you anymore. You don't care what people think about you. You don't care about the negatives because you see yourself in a positive light. So, and also the things that, when we, this book, oh gosh, the name has gone out of my head, but he starts off by saying the opening line is life is difficult. And
Mhm.
in the book, he talks about um, that many things that we imagine never comes to pass. And then so as we grow older, we realize that, some of the things that I used to worry about, I don't need to it's the road less traveled. That book. We don't need to worry about because it never happened. So it is a time, Stacey, where we should not be thinking that menopause equals old age. Menopause equals new life.
Mhm.
Menopause equals looking after myself. Menopause equals my children have done a great job. They've grown. They've seen after themselves. They're sorting out their own lives. They can manage themselves. So it is a time to celebrate your achievements, what you have done. And as I said, it is a time also when women are at the peak of the career. So all the sacrifices that you made now is paying off. You can buy things that you were never able to afford. You know, you can go on a cruise, you can go and buy this dress that you like, because all the other times you're thinking about, I have to buy this for the children, I have to do this, do that. So those are some of the positives, and I'm sure there are a lot more positives. You know, you could probably think of some, you know, but that is what it is. And as you said, to be thankful that you're living to see another day.
I know that you had wanted to bring, it was so important for you to bring a positive light to it, right? So I just wanted you to give you the opportunity to bring that positive light to it. I think that you did. And I think that our conversation today, although I did a lot of learning, is very therapeutic to share, you know, and I think sharing also takes that shame away.
Yes.
And also gives people an opportunity to resonate and identify, and maybe somebody watching will have an aha moment to say, oh, so that's what's been going on, you know? But like you said, this is a continuous conversation. This is just the first part of it. And there's so much more to talk about when it comes to menopause, women's health, and how we carry on with our greater days, you know? So any final words or final thoughts you want to leave us with?
Well, for the future,
anything you're working on?
Yes, but something I'm working on, but I don't want to share it yet.
Okay.
And but you know, we will talk about it on this. But one of the things is if I want to, Julie Walters said, if you deal with it in a healthy fashion, then I think you come out on the other side a better person. I've got so much more energy now than I ever had in my early 50s before the menopause. So our mindset is so important. And I think in the future, Stacey, when we have this conversation, we could invite some young people for one of them. And for another one, we could have some men on so that you get different perspectives. And in that way, we are
we need the support. We need the support.
We need the support. And it's important. I had another quote here that with education, you see, when you educate people about anything, it helps. So when we educate people about menopause, it will help with them being more supportive, and it will help to reduce the shame. Because as I said at the beginning, this is an absolutely normal and natural process. And it is not the end, but it can be the very beginning of a new part of life.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. Wow. That was amazing. I'm so happy. What a great first episode to have to bring awareness. I'm glad that I got to share a bit of my story as well, because I want to get back out there, and, you know, I'm here for a reason. And I need to fulfill that reason and fulfill that purpose. And part of it is being a leader and leading people into this kind of fullness of life, especially my girlies, right, Girl Activate? Especially my girlies that are looking to do well in business and do well in life. I do have a few things coming up. We finally secured our date for our next Girl Activate event. It's going to be natural hair. I know the girlies have been wanting me to talk about natural hair. So the first week in February 2024, we have a date for a in-person live event. We're back at the Uniondale Library. Secondly, I do have a free offer for you guys. I created a checklist, a social media checklist for those of you who are looking to improve your presence online and increase your brand awareness. I created 10 tips to help you communicate your personal brand online. So if you go to my website, staceyciceron.com, you can sign up there, put your name and email, and it will go right to your inbox for free. And lastly, in that same vein of building your personal brand, I talk a lot about hairstyling and helping hairstylists to learn their actual skill. But a lot of times as artists, we are very sensitive, like Erica Badu says, we are sensitive about our stuff. And that causes us to be sometimes in the shadows because we are so attached to our work of art that we're just afraid to put it out there. So I have a course that's going to be launching early January, but it would be available for purchase at the end of this year. So look out for that. It's called Activate Your Brand. Okay, so we're going to bring you out from the shadows into the spotlight by leveraging your personal brand. All right, because in this new year, I want to talk about our health and also our wealth and our road to financial freedom and physical freedom. All right. So that's it for me, StaceyCicilline.com. Stay tuned for your next episode of Girl Activate. I definitely plan on making this a weekly podcast episode, hopefully downloading this audio right now to the podcast so you can listen to it on your way to work if you weren't able to catch it here on YouTube. So we making moves over here, sis. We're not staying in the shadow. We're not letting this menopause, perimenopause, panic attacks, whatever it is that is coming up against this child of God. Okay, baby, we're not doing it. We're not doing it. All right. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I can't wait to see you in the next episode. Betty Ann, thank you so much for all of your knowledge, and we can't wait to have you back here on the Girl Activate podcast. All right, so thank everybody for watching, and we'll see you soon. Ciao.
Bye.